I got into an argument this morning with my son. I have three boys, and the oldest is 9, but he behaves like a teenager. So it's got this fight for freedom on our hands, and it was really something so stupid and minimal. But of course, these fights between parents and kids is a whole universe underneath, right, bubbling up. He forgot his water bottle. He couldn't find it. He has to take a water bottle to school every day. And I said, go look for it. And he was half dressed and getting ready to play video games in the morning, which is a lot to do and it's fine at school. But I insist that they get dressed, they brush their teeth, just, do the basic stuff before they can do any of that kind of watch TV or play video games. Because if they don't do that, then we have to rush in the morning and then there's more tension. And so best to avoid that kind of stuff. Anyway, he behaved like a brat. And I got annoyed. I didn't necessarily yell, but it was like I showed that I was pissed off. Because it's like, dude, all you have to do is find your water bottle. It's your water bottle, like not mine. and and of course, there's a time crunch because we got to go to school at some point. And he was pissed off because he wouldn't have time to play his video games in the morning. And I was pissed off because what the hell, man? It's not my water bottle. It's yours. Go be responsible. Do the responsible thing and look for it in the house. And of course, he didn't do. He half-assed it. And of course it ruins the energy in the house because then my wife gets annoyed when he's moping and whining and having a bad attitude, and I'm pissed off. And energy is it's infectious. Why am I telling you this? Not that you care about what goes on between me and my kids, but it's the part about energy being infectious that triggered this little recording. I don't like to talk about what I'm up to with people because I find that they just don't believe. I believe that we can end Middle Eastern wars. I believe we can end anti-Semitism. Not, pause it, not come to some compromise. I mean, I think that we can end all these things. It is possible. In fact, in my mind, I've already done it, as crazy as that sounds. And you might say, well, look at the news. What the hell are you talking about? You've got a war in Gaza. You've got the Iranians rearming themselves after getting smacked by Israel. You've got Turkey preparing for war with Israel, Egypt doing the same. You've got the Qataris telling the Europeans, behind the scenes anyway, to squeeze Israel. Israel's being isolated economically. Bibi Netanyahu saying as such. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background, some of which I know that I'm not yet, let's say, allowed to share. But suffice to say that the stuff that we do get shown is not great. And even if you have placed your faith in leaders like President Trump and Netanyahu, and I suppose there are others that do want to come to some sort of peaceful resolution and do look at the insanity of the Middle East, perhaps even the world, and say, guys, this is insane. This is ridiculous. You still find the majority of people don't believe that it's possible to end these wars. They think that what they see is real, what they're shown is real, that the news is real. And of course, the news is some slice of reality. I mean, if you live in the West, as I do, I live in the Netherlands. I step outside my house and it's peaceful. People get along, even between countries. You have the Netherlands, you have Belgium, you've got Germany. I mean, these are all neighbors. And 80 years ago, it was war across the entire continent, across the entire world. So why is peace then possible for Europeans but not for Middle Easterners? Why is peace possible for Christians but not for Jews and for Muslims? And then, of course, the conversation goes to, well, it's Islam and they want to conquer the infidels and all that kind of stuff. Fine. But then what about the Abraham Accords? What about Jordan and Israel? What about Egypt and Israel? As imperfect as those peace treaties are, they still hold. There's still peace. People don't want to believe what they see. They only want to believe in what scares them. And I think this is kind of the point that I'm getting at. I don't like to talk about what I do and how I'm going to do it because I think I was afraid of what I know people think, which is that they think I'm nuts or something. But that's just them judging. Right? I think Carl Jung, he said, thinking is difficult and therefore people judge. So we get little nuggets of stories about people and we judge them instead of thinking about their circumstance and what choices they made that led them to where they are. My father criticized me for the last podcast I did. He says, look, you didn't really get to the point. The last podcast was about Ahed Tamimi. And I think he was, if I'm paraphrasing his criticism fairly, I hope, that who cares that this woman went through what she went through? Her ideas suck. She's genocidal, or at least turning so. That's all that matters. And that's a judgment, and it's a correct one. It's just, there's no thought involved in it. Now you could say, well, better to live a simple life and just sort of black and white. And if you ever utter the words of genocide, well, then, or murder even, then that's it, you're finished. But I, as a teenager, for example, had fantasies of killing my mom. I won't get into why or whatever, but the point is, I love my mom and she's the best and she's awesome. And I don't want to kill anybody. But the point is, it's human to have these kinds of thoughts. The question is why? How? What are the things that are driving such a person to think these thoughts, to come to these kinds of conclusions? Because that's where the answer lies. You could say that about me and my son, for example. Matt could just blow my lid off and get super annoyed about him being a brat. But obviously there's something underneath it that has to be addressed, has to be solved for. Now, it could just say, look, these are the rules, this is the behavior, do as I say. But then I'm just training a robot, right? And I'm training him to ignore the pieces of himself that are simply there, which is not healthy. I mean, you think you can push things down, you think you can repress sides of yourself and you can get away with it. No, you can't. You can't. It always comes out. That's that nagging anxiety, right? There's that some piece of yourself that's trying to talk, to express itself in the world, and you won't let it because you're afraid. You're afraid to lose something. You're afraid to lose friendships. You're afraid to lose family members. You're afraid to lose jobs. You're afraid to lose status. You're afraid to lose, I don't know, but you're afraid. And I think, fuck that. Why should you fear to lose anything just for being yourself? You could say, well, why should I show the greedy side of myself or the selfish side or the arrogant side or any of these kinds of sides? Well, the thing is, we all have it. And just because they express themselves doesn't mean that you can't apologize and mean it. Say, oh shit, I was mistaken here, here, and here. It's not a big deal. It's fine. I think actually people will rather respect you for admitting your mistakes, honestly and openly. That's been my experience. With some very serious people in my business relationships, for example, like one customer, the CEO of one of the largest companies in said industry, I pissed him off. I really pissed him off. He sort of deserved it, I have to say. But I realized where I was wrong, and I apologized. And he texted me back and he said, all is forgiven. And it was a heartfelt apology. I said, look, here's where I was wrong. I was arrogant. I don't care. That's the thing about living in truth. It's like, what are you so afraid of? The truth doesn't care if you're arrogant or smart or selfish or selfless or whatever. You are all those things. Just accept it. It's the only choice you have. I mean, you can choose to not accept it and then live with this constant anxiety. But I don't suggest it. I don't recommend it. Why the hell would you want to feel that way? Look, life is not about external achievement. It's about how you feel inside, and how you feel inside dictates the way that you behave out there in the world. If you feel down and anxious and you feel like you're, I don't know, never going to make a lot of money, or you have to, then that's the life you're going to live. Like, it doesn't happen by accident. It all starts from inside. I'm not the first person, obviously, to come up with this stuff. And of course, those of you listening to this, the few of you that are out there, you probably won't take me seriously because, well, who am I, right? I'm not some billionaire, whatever, right? I'm not some world famous something. I'm just a guy. And that's what's so, frustrating, I suppose? That there is this arrogance to the world where people prefer to listen to someone of status say a certain truth. They pay more attention to the status than they do to the truth. And I find that frustrating, but I also have to accept it, which is part of the game that I'm up to, right? I'm actively, consciously seeking fame and riches simply for the sake of telling the truth. I don't give a fuck to have $1 billion or have 100 million followers on whatever social media platform. Only for the sake of fixing some shit. That's it. Sure, it sounds like a lot of fun, which I think is the whole point, right? What's the point of all that stuff what's the point of anything if you're not gonna have fun? But those are tools. Those are not the ends. Those are means. And still no one will believe. I'll say, look, the problem is not political. If I'm just limiting it right now to Israel-Palestine, it's not. You could, in theory and in practice, get one Jewish guy and one Palestinian Arab Muslim guy, sit them down in a room for like a year, empower those two, and tell them to hash everything out. Borders, Jerusalem, whatever, right? Economic relations, security ties, it's whatever you want. Relations between Muslims and Jews, interpretations of religious texts, whatever the fuck you want, whatever the sticking points are, you can actually sit those people down. They can hash it out, and you can be done. You can come up with a piece of paper and says, okay, here's the borders, here's how we do this, here's how we do that, and it's finished. That's not the problem. The problem is, well, it's cultural, I suppose, where the Palestinians are effectively living in a revenge fantasy, for starters, meaning their whole national narrative is destroy Israel so that we can become whole again from the disaster of 1948, which is a very narrow interpretation of what actually happened to these people, which is they got outplayed by the Jews. The Jews just honestly, they outplayed them. They were better prepared. They had a better story to tell to the people. They were more unified. Um, they had institutions in place, and the Arabs of that time didn't. They were completely fractured. They were governed by greedy people who wanted to, greedy families that wanted to control whatever, some, pieces of British mandate Palestine. Heaven forbid I say the word Palestine. And the results speak for themselves. It's their fault. It's always your fault. And so that living in this revenge fantasy, and it's a fantasy because Israel has nukes. Beyond the fact that they've got, an amazing air force and just way more advanced weaponry and the intel and all that kind of stuff, plus the sort of Jewish networks abroad to help them, and the alliance with America, of course. It's a fantasy. Like you're never going to defeat Israel. Never. Only if you work to tear the country apart from within, which is the other half of this coin. Why does Israel tear itself apart from within? Well, there's obviously some sort of trauma, 2,000 years of anti-Semitism, if you want to call it that, where there's this pathetic, what is it exactly like? There's this pathetic victimhood complex also with the Jews, where they say to themselves, look, we can't exert ourselves fully because if we do, then oy gewalt, the goyim are going to come after us and they're going to rape our women and kill our men, and so let's not provoke them by being too great and too powerful. And wouldn't it be nice if we just were friends with the ones who want to kill us? Let's appease them, because if we're too aggressive or if we're too strong, then, well, they're just going to piss them off even more. And so you have this side of Israel that is very much like this, very loud, very vocal. You see them on the streets every week. And they're a dominant strain in Israeli politics. I'm not saying that that's Netanyahu, but his opponents are like this. Let's cut a deal with Lebanon. This happened, I think, like 3 or 4 years ago, where they cut some maritime deal for oil and gas. Right? If we delineate the maritime borders with Lebanon and we could get that settled, then I think the logic that was sold to us was, then the Lebanese will have something to lose if they provoke a war with Israel, which, hey, October 7th happened, and look at that. They joined the war. So I guess there goes that logic. You can't trust people that say they want to kill you. Believe them. It's the truth. These are not political issues. These are psychological issues. These are, in fact, religious issues. And I know that term is kind of scary, because it's like we're not trained to think religiously. We're not trained to think psychologically. We go to school and we are trained to think secularly. People go to MBAs and they learn a lot of theories and stuff. And they learn that in university. and they're trained to be obedient workers. And they lose touch with their humanity. And then you can even say that the humanities itself, which is a well-documented fact, that certainly in America, has been hijacked by radical leftist type people who say the white man is this, and America is that, and the Jews are this, all this sort of self-hatred. And all that is being fed to tear the Western societies apart. But people still don't want to believe. They don't want to believe that this is a religious problem. I like to observe trends in the world. One is interesting is AI and people scared for their jobs. AI is going to replace me. You hear this more and more and more these days. And I think, good Lord, do you have such low self-worth to say such a thing? It's a screen with answers and words. It's not a person. It's not a soul. It's not a member of your family. It's not a friend. It's not a lover. Why do you think so lowly of yourself? Why do you attach your identity to how you earn a living? Why do you think that you can't earn a living just being you and a grateful version of you? Sure, AI is going to replace certain rote tasks, but that doesn't mean that, look, the prize, we are the prize, human beings. You want to win a market, you want to make lots of money, you have to win people over. You could say, well, AI is going to do that for you. Okay, I guess. But that still doesn't give you a fulfilling life. It leaves you just empty and disconnected. That is a religious problem. It's a spiritual problem. Psychological, if you want. And so, if we don't understand the problem for what it is, if you just judge and you don't think, you are doomed to repeat whatever's going on right now. So that's why I take the time to do what I do. I put my life on the line here, my career, all of it. I quit my job 3 years ago. Now, I didn't set out to lead this back then. I actually quit because, well, I was in a very nice job. It was paying me about 200 grand a year. And, but it was killing my soul. And I was 37. And so I went to go work for this energy initiative, which is amazing, and under a brilliant entrepreneur, which under whom I learned a lot, but didn't work necessarily the way I wanted. And I don't know, around that time, I noticed, let me put it this way, I noticed the gravitational pull that big ideas have towards certain people. I didn't quite understand how or why, I just knew that that was part of it. If you're out there doing stuff, whatever, for no particular, if there's no vision, essentially, no one's going to come. No one's going to come and rally to your cause. No one's going to believe. Like, what is there to believe in? There's nothing in it for them. And I realized that part of my failing so far is that I haven't sold it enough to people. I see a world in which peace exists. Let me put it this way. As I said to you before, I've already done it in my mind. I've already seen the scenes where those two leaders are empowered and hashing this stuff out, I understand how it's going to play out. I've seen it. I've felt it. I've been inside the room. In my mind, of course, yeah, I'm not a complete nut. But they do say, believe, neuroscience is that visualization does work. The brain cannot distinguish between you imagining something in full vivid detail and reality. And at some point, the two things become one. You see this among great athletes. Conor McGregor, for example, talks about this all the time. But it's true. Steph Curry. They visualize themselves making the shots. They visualize themselves getting in the zone before games or whatever it is. It works. I've seen it. And the thing is, it's not even that extraordinary. I mean, picture your life right now. Let's say you live in America or in Europe, picture your life right now. It's pretty ordinary, right? I mean, it's amazing if you actually just stop to think about it, because first of all, A, you're alive, but second of all, you've got all this amazing technology at hand, and your life is so much easier than anyone else has ever had it. But okay, let's putting that aside. It's normal, right? Like it's peaceful. Don't have to worry about a fucking missile or a drone dropping on your head and killing your family. Like that just doesn't happen. You don't have to worry about sending your kids to the army. You don't have to worry about, I don't know, 100 million people hating you, even though they have no idea who you are. But they hate you because of some misrepresentation of who you are. All of these things are possible. It's just, of course, no one wants to believe. So is the problem me? Or is the problem you? Maybe it's both. It's both in the following way. I mean, A, I haven't shown you exactly this world, which is fine, and I accept that. But it's also you, because you don't even leave the door open to it. You judge because thinking is too hard. Look, the answer is obvious. Just take America as an example. It is a marvelous society, miraculous even, because it is predicated on freedom for the individual, maximum freedom for the individual. I am a huge fan and admirer of Joe Rogan and his podcast. And every week the guy's got some comedian, some writer, some, a Cameron Haynes or a David Goggins or some UFC fighter, some, freak of nature on the show that just excels at the narrow niche thing that they do. And that's possible because America is a system that allows you to do these things and be rewarded for it. And that is so cool. America is not, there's this lie about America that it's for the middle class. Bullshit. America is for the exceptional individual. It's not an accident that all the most innovative stuff is going on in America. AI, military technology, sports, whatever, entertainment. Good Lord, there's so much stuff going on in America. America really is the greatest country in the world. That's a fact. It has its problems, yeah. But it also does something even more incredible, is that it proved many, many, many times over that gender, race, creed, religion, all that stuff just gets thrown out the window. If you say to people, believe in yourself and work to reach your potential, it's possible. It doesn't matter what your background is. So long as you hold that fundamental belief in your heart and you act it out, you will succeed. Or at least the chances that you will succeed are extremely high. The best, sorry, not extremely high, but the best they're ever going to be. So it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or you're black or you're gay or you're straight or you're white or you're Asian or whatever. There are success stories for all those categories of people. Which means, by definition, that that system has to be imported everywhere else. Has to be. Whatever. No one's forcing anyone to do anything. But the debate is over. Let's put it that way. Of all the systems that we've tried, free market democracies is the way to go. And anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. We've tried this, though, multiple ways. America invades Iraq in 2003 and tries to Americify Iraq, and that failed catastrophically. Why? It was too destabilizing. You can't just, prop up little Americas all over the world. Like, it's too hard. It's too hard for someone that doesn't speak English, that doesn't understand capitalism, that doesn't understand democracy. You lose your place in the world. You have no idea what's going on. There's too many rules to pick up all at once. You don't know how to maneuver anymore. You've lost everything. All the way that was, even though it was a bad system, it's too much. It's a shock to the system. But it's not so shocking if you couch those ideas in the cultural context in which these people inhabit. In other words, you have to put an Islamic packaging on this stuff. That's their culture, that's their history, and it's a rich history, and it's a great history. One that should be respected. Because otherwise you're just you're going to create masses of disaffected men. And that's no good, because that's what ended up happening in Iraq. And that's why you had so many people turn to this radical version of Islam, because it spoke to their inner frustration and rage. I'm a man, I have ambitions, I have dreams, and I'm being blocked. I can't go in this system. I can't go. But if you free the individual, let them do their thing, and you set up some laws, basic laws, right? Not this overbearing government, you're fine. That's it. It's over. Like this, that's it. Then the whole system takes care of itself if you decentralize these things. It's very simple. It's there. It's all there for you to see. It's all there for you to all of the evidence is there. How do you get there? How do you get there in these societies that are so corrupt and repressed? And the truth is, it's impossible. Unless you have an enormous audience to hold people accountable for the bad shit that they've done. Unless you have a media company that is doing its job properly. It's its own interesting discussion about what a media company should do. But it is fundamentally truth to power. And there's not enough of that in the world today. The truth doesn't care, right? It doesn't give a shit. It is what it is. And but that's what's needed, that's what's necessary. And you think, well, fine, all good. Show me, right? And there are some shining lights out there, like Rogan, I think is great. But the Free Press also seems pretty good. Ben Shapiro I really like. Douglas Murray is really good. There's some voices out there that are they're great. They're awesome. It's just that none of them have the explicit goal of peace. They may implicitly want these things. And in fact, I think all that is true. I think if you ask them, pointing gun at their head and say, do you want peace? All of them will say, absolutely yes. But it's not directed at this goal. All that energy that they're doing, that they're up to. You know, Ben Shapiro's got a sort of power to the conservatives type thing going on. I don't think he's even hiding it, right? I think he's just very much saying conservative values all the way. Joe Rogan's just like, look, dude, I'm just super curious, and I'm not going to put up with any bullshit. I think that Barry Weiss is something in the middle. I would say as pretty damn good in terms of media is concerned, but still with some of the lingering effects of Jewish trauma and all that other stuff in the background. Again, notice here that all this stuff is psychological, right? Douglas Murray, I think, is a great admirer of Western civilization and believes that this is the best way to go for humanity. And it's very pissed off that people don't see that, and for many, many years now are just taking it for granted and inviting in forces that are destroying this society from within. And he's absolutely right about that. And it doesn't take a genius to see where this is going, not in the right direction. Now, he's the genius that saw it many, many years ago, so that's to his credit. But I think at this point, if you don't see it, you're a fool. You need a media company to keep this shit in line. You need a media company that doesn't bullshit people, that doesn't feed them nonsense. You need a media company that's willing to own up to its mistakes. What is a mistake anyway? A mistake is a gift because it tells you where you went wrong and it tells you how you can be better. A mistake is your friend. If you listen, it tells you how you can be better and not do that thing again. So long as you're not afraid. This doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. Overnight success is bullshit. It only looks like overnight success because that's how it looks like to you. You, I suppose. What overnight success actually is the result of many years of grinding and figuring it out and shedding all the bullshit that doesn't suit you as a person and as a group, and removing that fear and going for it and learning along the way. But it starts with one person, one individual. And slowly, and then suddenly, that person manages to convince others that they have a point. I think that's it. I don't really think I have anything more to say. Because I'm sharing with this with you. I don't know. I'm not really sure why. So you understand what's happening? I should say that since all great movements start with one person, the same is true for the Jews and the same is true for the Palestinians. You have to find that one individual who believes and takes and isn't afraid and therefore goes on that path to setting things right, to freeing the individual, to dispensing with the notion that somehow they're a victim, to fight against generations of accumulated trauma and warped thinking, and to say, we can do better than this. And in fact, we should be grateful because the map is already out there. We just have to plot it for ourselves. It's not that much work. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has already been invented. And so this is what? It's an invitation to that one individual. I'm out there looking for those individuals. We'll say, we can do this in our lifetimes, such that, picture this, there's peace between Israel and Palestine. Palestinians are united under a leader who's got a vision that is free market, democracy, grateful to be alive, love of life, right? All the sort of the core values that make any society great. Doesn't matter what the religion is, the basic stuff, the fundamentals. And that's it. There's peace. All the stuff has been settled, and that's it. And there's no more violence. And the crazies have been sort of contained in their society because there's always going to be crazies, right? No society is perfect, but at least they're not in power anymore because the people say, no, enough of you guys. You're horrible. And think about that. I mean, the second order effect is that Qatar and Egypt and Jordan and the Lebanese and the Syrians and the Yemenites and everyone else, like they can't whine anymore about Israel-Palestine because that's off the table. The Palestinians are like, excuse me, but we're good, thank you. Please stop instigating nonsense in our countries here. We're good. We're all rich. Gaza is literally the Riviera, and like, please go away with your crazy ideas. We're happy being rich and comfortable and working on really meaningful stuff. So fuck off. Okay, so that's gone. That's gone. There's nothing to talk about there anymore. Fine. Now, it's interesting there because there is the example of a Muslim country that is saying, well, we can make peace with the Jews. We can respect them. That we're equals. And that's an example for the rest of the Muslim world. Now, the rest of the Muslim world is going to look for examples because what else are they going to talk about? All of a sudden, they have to now focus in on their own societies that have been so brutally repressed by leaders who would much rather deflect attention to what's going on in Israel-Palestine rather than what's going on in their own societies. Because, hey, if they don't have to, if the people don't pay attention to how badly they're getting fucked by these people, then, well, they get to keep all the money and the power, and that's fine. Isn't that convenient? So yeah, so they get, they have something else to talk about. They have an Islamic example of success, like major success. Interesting. And so you can then take those core values and start to export it all around the Muslim world. And do it peacefully. You don't have to have a war over these things. Maybe it comes to it, maybe it doesn't, right? But if there's a media company that's doing its job globally, regionally, whatever you want to call it, then at least we can mitigate the violence as much as possible. We can abstract it out. We can actually talk about things instead of killing one another. And if societies are built, free markets, democracy, love of life, gratitude, these sort of fundamental religious values, where exactly is there a place for anti-Semitism? If Iran or Turkey or you name it, Syria, is now looking inward and saying, how can we be better? Why in the fuck would they want to hate on Jews that are in any event at peace with the Palestinians and causing no trouble there? All of this is within our grasp because we live in an age where information travels very fast, faster than it's ever traveled before. Plus, it's super cheap. I mean, you could, in theory, share this video, and 2,000 or so of you could share this video as well. And this message could spread. Now, is this going to happen? I don't fucking know. I don't really care. I honestly don't. This isn't for you. This is for me, actually. This is to say to my fear of being misjudged, which I'm certain will happen, to go fuck itself. I don't care. I know what I know. And you can go through my arguments one by one, every single thing I've said here, try to pick it apart, see where it's wrong, and realize that it's not, and where it is, I'm happy to hear it, and tweak it along the way. But that last bit, that last part of the world, that description of the future, man, it's beautiful. And man, it's something worth working on and bringing about. But you have to believe. See ya.